Okay.
Okay, hello everybody. Back for another week on Lianna Walden's YouTube channel. We have an interesting conversation today with a friend of mine, Chris Doby, and he has had many years of exploring all sorts of sexual realms and possibilities and trying different things and opening up different doors and this type of thing. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to him a little bit about that because he's an older guy. He's done a lot of threesomes, like what it was like for him in the beginning and how did he get started. And we're going to talk like sort of pre-COVID stuff and early history stuff, and just sort of find out, what's the story behind all of that when you're a single guy and you're looking to explore and get connected with people, right? I know a lot of my subscribers and people who watch ask me, like, well, where do I meet people? I can't meet anybody. I mean, where there's no good people out there, that type of thing. So, hi, Chris.
Hi.
Thanks for
Hi.
coming here. Thanks for coming on. Um, so, Chris, we're both in Vancouver, actually. Chris is, how long have you been in Vancouver for?
Uh, Most of my life, 60 years. Yeah, except a few years in Ottawa. So, yeah, like 60 years. Yeah. I'm in
60
White Rock
years.
now. It's, yeah, still Vancouver. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. It's home. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean Vancouver's it's quite an active community. A lot of things are happening, but I think there's a lot of stuff happening in many cities. It's just knowing where to go, then also having the confidence to do that. So Chris, just tell us a little bit, like early on, like a little bit about your history, about how you decided, well, you wanted to do something besides like just monogamy, or have you always been non-monogamous?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always, I never really believed in monogamy. I went along with it, but I don't think it's a natural human condition. I don't think we're meant to be monogamous. I don't think there's any animal species that is monogamous. But and yeah, so but I also was I don't know, like shy and awkward, and so sex for me was something that was like it was like something I wanted, but I never really was never felt I was getting, and then and then finally I met a woman, and we were monogamous, and because for me that was like I had no real experience with anything else. I'd heard of polyamory and swinging, but it all seemed kind of polyamory just seemed really complicated, and swinging is like, I don't know, they seemed a little kind of sleazy, and maybe this was just my thinking. And
How old were you
so I
then? How old were you then?
well, so I got together with this woman. I was in my in mid 30s, and we were together for about 13 or 14 years. So let's say I was getting into my late 40s, almost 50, when I actually, so her and I, we broke up, and that was fine. It was, it was amicable and everything. It just wasn't, we just weren't, we weren't really exploring sexually, and I didn't really know, how to do that. And I just kind of wanted to be on my own, really. That was, and then, but I also wanted to
Wow,
be able to.
what was your sexual relationship with her like?
Well, it was, at first it was great. It was hot and everything, and then, well, and I was going through some issues with drug addiction and alcohol, and that was also tied up with sex, for me, right? And so that was happening, and so she didn't really understand that stuff, and I didn't either, and so I came out, I guess, as a sex addict, and I was going to 12-step meetings about that, and um and then eventually I got the drug addiction was it was just too it was I had to stop. So and so
Would you
they
mind what I want to ask you a question about the sex addiction that you were, I guess, classified as, right?
yeah.
Or the doctor said that you were a sex addict, or you thought you were a sex addict,
Well, I
and
mean,
why?
it was, yeah,
Why?
I kind of, well, yeah, and that's a tricky one because addiction, so it depends on how you define addiction. And for me, it's something that I don't really have any control over it, and it's taken up a lot of my time, and it's causing me to, mess things up in my other life, right? My regular life, commitments or whatever it might be. And so that to me is what uh, kind of makes it addictive rather than just, I don't know, exploration or healthy, because we're sexual, I mean, and who's to say what's addictive and what isn't addictive? For me, that's a personal thing. And I don't consider myself a sex addict anymore. I don't know if I really did or not, but I recognized that it was behavior I needed to sort of look at because that was all tied in for me with alcohol and drugs. You drink some alcohol and it's like I wanted to act on my sexual urges, right? Whereas when I was sober, I was less inclined to do that,
Mm.
right? So,
Were you with your wife then, or is this after or
well,
during
yeah,
or
yeah. So I was, yeah, I kind of
your partner?
so no, I kind of I cleaned up, and that's when I met my I cleaned up first time, and then that's when I met my first partner, and then I guess what happened was I relapsed or whatever, so I went back into the more heavy drug and alcohol use, and also started acting out more, pardon me, sexually, like with sex workers and also I was on a year. I took a year leave of absence off of work, and I was traveling in Southeast Asia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and so I was acting out there. I was on my own, and yeah, and so I came back and basically told her what was going on, and yeah, and then it was so she was. I don't know how long that period went. It wasn't that long, and then it was finally I said, okay, well, I need to get help, and that's when I went into treatment and went to a place in Ottawa or in Ontario, Homewood Hospital in Guelph, which also they're one of the treatment places that talks about sex addiction and treats it, if you will, in addition to drugs and alcohol. And so that's when I guess that's when I learned about that, and I went to meetings and for a few years, and then I just kind of drifted away from that whole recovery 12 step, with both drugs and alcohol. And I didn't start drinking or using drugs, but I did start looking for ways to explore my sexual needs, right, and to yeah, to have sex. Really, that's
So during that period of time of rehab, there you were not having sex with anybody. You were kind of coming off of everything.
well. And I was still with Catherine, and so we were having sex, but it wasn't a real, it was occasional kind of sex. It wasn't a real sort of active. We weren't really, we weren't pursuing, we weren't really talking about sex that much, and we were friends, right? But so it kind of became a non-sexual relationship
Mm.
towards the end there, and she was
So
older than
you
me,
said
but
when you first came on, you said that you never really believed in monogamy. So were you confused at that time, or were you thinking about that, or did you? hadn't really entered into the
I mean,
idea yet.
I was seeing sex workers and having sex with other people, and just not. Yeah, I eventually told Catherine about it, but I wasn't really talking to her about it, and I hadn't really, I just didn't want to be only having sex with the same person all the time. I just, for me, it's about variety and that kind of thing. And yeah, and so yeah, I just don't think monogamy is really for me, anyways. It's not something I've been monogamous. I can do it, but like I don't want to. it's,
Yeah,
that's yeah.
yeah. Well, and there's a lot of different ways that you can be. It's just we're not taught about anything outside of monogamy mostly. I mean, it's changing a bit now.
True.
But I know, like, 20 years ago, 10, even 15 years ago, there wasn't a lot of discussion around non-monogamous connections with other people, opening up your relationships. All of this type of thing was extremely, extremely taboo, right? So
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
people, and even to this day, feel like trapped in this monogamous box, and it's not for everybody. It is for some people, but for
yeah,
many
yeah.
people, it's just like, this is not working.
No, no, yeah, and well, and I also found out about myself. Like, I'm not really, I, I, I don't really have any interest in like a romantic relationship or like a soulmate or that kind of a thing. Like, it's just not, it's not something I'm wired for. Let's say I just don't. But at the same time, I like companionship. I like I like people, and I like sex, and so that can be. I don't want to say difficult. It could just be. Yeah, I don't know. I like because sometimes the urges or the desire even just to be with someone. It can lead to some difficulties, let's say, in like personal relationships.
Yeah, yeah. So when you left your partner, you've gone through rehab, and you're like, oh, okay, now I want to do some exploring. What steps did you take? I mean, besides, going to sex
Yeah,
workers, let's say, but like actually connecting with people to do, because you've, done threesomes and done other things like that. So how did you start connecting
well,
with
that
people?
yeah. So that was. Let me think of the time it was. The year. It would have been around, let's say, you know, like, yeah, 15 to 20 years ago, even. So what are we looking at then? The early 2000s. Yeah. So Craigslist, you could advertise casual encounters. And so I would advertise there and I would get some interest, usually, guys offering to have sex and other things. But occasionally you meet, like um, an interesting person, and sometimes it would just be a one-time thing, and other times it would be a more, a continuing thing. And but I also discovered that for me, it seemed like couples. It was easier to meet with couples than with single women. Just in terms of the numbers.
Yeah.
And so I was cool with that. It was why not, right? And I'm not I don't consider myself, I don't even consider myself bisexual, but I've had sex with guys, and I've been in situations where there's guys, and when we're like cocks are touching each other, and but it's to me that's no big deal. But I don't like I don't go out looking for guys to have sex with. Like, that's just not my thing. right?
Yeah.
And
What did you feel like when you first were meeting people? Were you nervous? Was it
well,
easy for
very
you?
nervous, yeah. And so at first it was like I was on. So I was also I joined this adult friend finder.
Adult friend finder, that, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And so they have like a chat thing, and you can email other members, and and then maybe meet with them. And so yeah, I just started like at first it was a real yeah, it was a learning curve because I had no no idea, right? And I was taking it all very seriously. At first it's like whereas, yeah, I mean, uh, you can't, you can't take it seriously, really. I mean, you can take it seriously in terms of how how people treat you and how you treat others, but half the time it's all just fantasy, right? It's just if you're having a chat, it could be just a fantasy for the other person, and they're never really going to meet. That maybe that's just part of their fantasy, right? Or sometimes it would be guys, and they're sending pictures of their wives, and yeah, and what if we we'll go to a bar and then you can seduce her, and her and I have talked about it a couple of times, but only when we've been drunk, and so he wants me to you know pick up his wife or something, and then you know, and she'll, of course, will be into it because they've talked about it a couple of times before, and
So you found
like,
like you found there's a lot of conversation, but not always a lot of action.
yeah, and they're not even necessarily talking to their partner about it. It's just something that they're fantasizing about, and they haven't even got to that stage where they could, talk to their wife or partner about it. It's interesting. So for me, it was just to learn about all that stuff, right? Like that. Okay, there's these kind of people, there's these kind of people, that kind of thing. And really, for me, it was about not getting too worked up about it. And even if so, and that goes so even if you get like if somebody came over to have sex, and if she decided at any point, I don't want to have sex, or I'm leaving now, or whatever, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, there's never, for me, it was never about. It was always like I don't even like to really initiate sex. You know what I mean? Like I have a problem sort of initiating it, being like, hey, do you want to have sex? I would rather have somebody ask me, hey, do you want to have sex?
So you're more of the submissive type than the dominant
Well,
type.
yeah, I mean, submissive, or yeah, kind of like I don't. And then the other thing is like the chase or the seduction. That was never something that I like that sort of that aspect, right? The game, going to the clubs and getting the numbers or whatever. That was just never something I just wasn't. I wasn't into it. It's just
Mhm.
I can't be bothered. I don't know. And and even dating is like it's like I'd rather the easiest way for me was when I advertised in Craigslist, and somebody would answer my ad, right? And then we'd have sex first, and then maybe we'd have a date, and discover, oh, hey, we have this other stuff in common too, you know. But
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, so that was for me. That's always been a thing. It's like well, I guess I'm supposed to be with someone, but because that's our culture. And then when I was with someone, it was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not really what I want, and well, what do I want? I don't know. But I like living on my own, and I like I like the idea of having sex with different people,
Mhm.
and that's kind of
Because
as far as
you were married a second time with a woman who was much more open as well.
that's right. Yeah. Well, okay, that was one. So yeah, this was still when you could advertise in Craigslist. And so she had been apparently stalking one of my ads, and decided that it was her birthday, that she was gonna treat herself. And so yeah, that was exactly like what I was just describing, where we had sex. The sex was great, but we also had, like, we just got along really well. We just, we hit it off, and so we started just dating and seeing each other. But then when we moved in together, I was like, it wasn't good. Yeah. But I mean, we stayed together another 4 years, but and we got married, halfway. So we're still married. In fact, I've got the papers to. They're going in this week. In fact, yeah,
Oh wow, okay. So but
yeah,
you were with one woman before, very monogamous, you had that kind of situation, and then you went
yeah.
through the rehab and everything, and you actually met a woman who was not really monogamous at all.
Well,
But you
no, well, yeah. So that was another thing, because no, she wasn't monogamous. I mean, she's a sex worker, so she was an escort. She did full service sex work. So no, she's not monogamous, and I had no issue with that. I think that's a great job. If you can do it, it's that you can make good money. You're providing a great service, and it's not easy, right? It's not for the faint of heart. And she was really good at it. But she also, as it turns out, wanted the kind of the knight in shining armor, the guy that would just come and sweep her off her feet, and just be, like that, a real passionate guy. And she just wanted that to be a monogamous, and she wanted to be married. And so I was like, well, okay, I'll marry you. And and I was monogamous. Once we had established that, see, the whole thing with us was, and I think it is with a lot of couples, is we went about it all backwards. I mean, I think we did it right in terms of the, having sex, and getting that out of the way, and okay, yeah, the sex is great. But just in terms of, like, we never sat down and said, well, what do you want, from a relationship? What are you looking for? And we never really, and I didn't, at that time, I didn't really know, I did, and I didn't have the guts, if I did know, to say, well, you know what, I just want to live my own, and, see you later. I just, yeah, seriously, I didn't really have that knowledge, but I also didn't have the guts, the courage. And now I do, because I just know that about myself. It's like, I don't want to live with anyone. I don't want to marry you. And so, but let's see what we can figure out, right? I don't really want to be anybody's primary relationship. I'd rather be a secondary, the guy on the side, part of your man harem, however you want to classify that. That's not that I don't that I want to be disrespected, or anything like that. I just don't want that, that whatever, the adoration, and also the dependence, and the and like that kind of thing. I
Mhm.
just have no interest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool to be able to come to that point of really understanding yourself more about
Well,
what
I
works for you.
also, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, go.
Or good. Well, I was just going to say, I also discovered, like, it also seems now that people are, so there's terms like aromantic, right? That's like somebody who, it's like it comes out of the asexual community, but it's more about romance, and so that there's a whole spectrum of that, right? And so there's all these new definition, solo poly, right? That's somebody who, yeah, may have maybe in love with lots of people, but is solo, and however, I mean, they could even be living with somebody, but it's still a solo poly, and they're still solo poly. and then there's what is it, a relationship anarchist,
Yeah.
so that all your relationships are important, and each one is has its own merit and its own place in your life, and yeah, so that kind of thing. And it seems to me that there's just so much more awareness of all that, those terms, and that people are going, yeah, that's how I feel.
Hmm.
So there's much
Yeah,
more
yeah, I think it's
acceptance.
helped people. It's helped people a lot to. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't like labels, but I personally think it just helped so many people allow themselves to define a bit more, more clearly, more specifically who they are. Because if it's just one label, like relationship, you know,
All right.
like what does that mean? And we've kind of defined it as a certain kind of a thing, right? But actually within a relationship there's lots of different ways that that can be played out, and we always have lots of different relationships with different people and they all work differently. Different people offer us different things in our lives, right? But then when it came to like the sexual intimate, it was like one person the rest of your life over here, that's over, like that's there, right? And
Yeah.
that's that, it took you many years to figure that out for yourself, but now you're like, okay, listen, I don't have to like lock that sexual intimate relationship in a box. I can have that with a number of people, and when I want I can be the solo guy and do my thing. And so how does it make you feel that you're in that place now?
Well, what for me, I'm just a lot more comfortable in my own skin, and I'm able to just say to somebody, this, these are these words that I can use to define myself. And, if you don't know what they mean, look them up. But that's, and I can explain it a bit, like, I don't want this, but, like, it's so funny because I'll tell people, oh, I don't want any kind of financial entanglement. I don't want like a primary lover, or that kind of. I don't want to be exclusive, and it's like and they're, oh yeah, I get it, and then it's like they'll say something a week later that really makes you realize that what they want is they're to be your queen, and they love only you, and that they only want you to have eyes for them. And it's like, yeah, it's just okay. And it's not just it's like it's sex workers, it's regular people, whatever that is. And yeah, so it's you can't just look at somebody and know really what's going on in there. And
Yeah.
but anyways, that's okay, because at least I'm telling people what works for me, and I'm being consistent about my needs, and then I can advocate for myself, right? Like, that's been a big
Hmm.
change for me.
That's all that matters really when it comes down to it. You have to be secure in who you are and what you want. And I believe too, like desires can change, so you can be, well, right now this is what I feel, this is what I desire in my life, and this is who I feel I am, and this works for me, right? And it might change 10 years from now, who knows? But just to be confident in that really helps a lot
Yeah, it
moving
does.
forward and
If
defining for
people
people.
people see that, right, and they respect that, and and most people anyways, so
Hmm. So you were pretty you're quite active before COVID, but then you were saying like what happened
yeah.
in
So what
COVID
happened?
and
Well, yeah.
after.
So I met Margaret, and so that turned out that she was, she wanted us to be monogamous, and so that was kind of when I stopped seeing other couples and people that I had been saying, yeah, because I was, well, okay, I'll be monogamous, and so that was for about 5 or 6 years, and then and so I kind of was out of the scene, let's say, for maybe until just before COVID, I think. and I saw one or two people um, from the old days from that time. And but it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't the same anymore. I don't know. I don't really know what was missing, or what exactly that was about. I still don't. And but and so I still I haven't really seen too many of the old crew. I saw a couple of couples even during, I guess, maybe last year. I saw a couple from the old days, and it was just, well, it was the same scenario, which was cool. I didn't mind that. She wears a blindfold, and I just go in, and we have fun, and then I leave, and then that's I don't mind that. But for whatever reason, it just wasn't. I just kind of was like, the last time I was there, I was like, I don't know. And then so I haven't been back, and I haven't really. Although lately now, since post COVID, so COVID, I didn't bother with even trying anything really, just online maybe, but no meetings, nothing happened. And then, but then I started getting, since COVID, I've started thinking about maybe going to like a sex party, or an event of some kind, and just see what's. And then and online there's lots of well, the Craigslist thing, they took away that. They put in a law that prevented those kinds of ads, or nobody will carry them anymore. So that kind of dried up part of uh, um, the sources. But it's also, yeah, for me it was more like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm not looking to meet people that way anymore. Like through
Right.
adult finder, or um, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I'm just kind of in
there's
the.
lots of new apps now, of course. There's lots of different new apps that
Well,
offer alternative relationship styles, meet people that want to do this or do that, want threesome, and I think there's still the same kind of process of, you have to weed through the people. You have to, eventually find that person that's going to actually meet you in person. And, it's a step-by-step process. You have to have
it is,
patience, and
yeah,
you have to go in with an open mind, and have fun with it, and, like you say, not be too serious. And but
yeah.
you've never been to like a kind of a sex party, sex
Well,
set.
so I went to a few of these. There's this cat these events that she would throw. And that was in between. So yeah, that was between my two partners, let's say. And yeah, that was so I went to there was a guy on Adult Friend Finder he was organizing a gangbang for another couple, a guy and his wife. And so that was my very first gangbang. And so I go to the hotel in downtown Vancouver, and there's about 6 or 8 of us, guys down in the lobby, and then the organizer, and then the couple. They were at a concert, and they walk by, and he points at her, and then so they go up, and then 10 minutes later or something, we all go up, and it's a tiny little hotel room. And so we're all kind of shoulder to shoulder in the, and then everybody, we dropped our dropped our trousers, and just, I think it was everybody was kind of taking turns on this woman. And but to me, it was just such a bizarre experience. And at first, yeah, I got an erection, and I was kind of like, just kind of fumbling with her, not really doing much. And then, and then there's another guy coming in, and then so I kind of backed off, and I was like, yeah, I just left. I just, yeah, I'll see you guys. The husband was standing there, and he's just kind of standing there. It was such a bizarre experience, and I just left. I thought, geez, I don't know if I'm really a gangbang guy. But then the second
Well,
time it
you
was,
did it once.
well, but then, yeah, so there was another one, and it wasn't really a gangbang, but it was a similar thing where it's a couple, and they were down in Seattle hosting in a hotel room because they were taking a cruise the next day. And so it was me and maybe three other guys. And but that, it was a much bigger, they had like a suite, and it was a much more relaxed time. And the woman, she was great. And so it was a so then I was like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I could do this. So that's how it is, right? And some of these
Yeah,
sex parties, I mean, some of the guys, it's like, they're wearing their ratty bathrobes and their old socks. Come on, man, make an effort. It's unbelievable.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So where did you find these connections? Were these Craigslist connections?
Well, Adult Friend Finder was the gangbang, and it was the two sort of gangbangs. And then I don't know, somehow I heard about this. I think it was one of the guys at the gangbang mentioned this cats, right? Cats, KAT, her, cats fantasies or something. These parties, and she used to have them in Yale Town, and then she gradually would move. She would rent places out in the suburbs, and so that's when I started going. It was a place in Cloverdale or something, and that was the guy. She was one of the few that would accept single guys. After she vetted you, because a lot of them don't. Single guys, you're not welcome at a swingers event. It's you're kind of shunned, and I guess it's because guys are idiots a lot of the time. But so that's kind of. But she would at least, and you had to pay more as a single guy, and but that was fine, and those were interesting because there was the orgy room, and there was then there was private rooms for people, and um, but I'm kind of a shy guy and awkward, and standing around, bumping elbows with all these naked people, and waiting to get invited, or because that's the other thing, single guy, right? So you got to well, either get invited or politely ask, and that's not necessarily easy for some people. Uh, but those were good
Yeah.
because that helped me to kind of get over some of that shyness, right, and that awkward feeling about being around people naked.
Yeah. Well, when you went when you went to these places, did you ever feel not welcome or anybody ever say anything?
No, nothing like that. I mean, they some there would be sort of some cliquey people, but there would always be friendly people too that were just like welcoming. Oh, a new person, and they would be talking about other places they've been, and so there was. I never felt like shunned or anything like that. But it's kind of like a high school thing where if you're not one of the good looking popular people, you might feel shunned, right? But I think it's just like what you say about just kind of being brave, right? And that can be really hard. That can be difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been to lots of different clubs and things, and I've never seen or heard from anybody that they felt shunned or uncomfortable. I mean, no means no in these clubs. If there's no question
Yeah,
asked, people respect your nose, people respect your space if you need the space. There's usually people there that if you are having any problem at all, there's people there that you can go to and say, "Look, I need some help here." Those are always sort
right.
of people watching over everybody, making sure
That's
everyone's
right.
okay and comfortable, right? So it's quite a welcoming environment most of the time.
It is, and I think yeah, for sure, and they're very kind of aware of safer sex practices, and exactly like what you say, consent. No means no, and just being polite and you know, accept
Yeah.
whatever people tell you.
Yeah. And so do you think like, and a lot of guys say on my YouTube as well, like, oh, I'm getting too old. I guess I can't possibly do that anymore. What do you think about that, the age thing?
It's funny, yeah, because I joined Adult Friend Finder, let's say my late 40s, 48 or something. And then I turned 50. And I thought I perceived a drop kind of interest, right? So I turned my age to 40. and, and then I was 40 for 10 years, and then and then when I turned 50, which was I was actually 60, I put my age in Adult Friend Finder to 60, and it seemed like I got more interest. I don't know. I think just being honest is the best, and then so because I get asked, by people, how like and young the girls, like in their 20s or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, daddy," whatever. It's fun, it's nice, it's flattering, and so yeah, I think it's getting better, like I think I don't feel at all that my age is holding me back or restricting me from any kind of uh, like any kind of fun, adult fun, let's say like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well, what would you
yeah.
say? What would you say to a guy? You've had lots of experience. Well, since your late 40s up until now, let's say you've had most of the kind of play experience. What would you say to a guy that's just coming in and he's like, 60, late 50s, early 60s?
Well, I'd say, yeah, just be, take it real, like take it easy on yourself, like be real gentle on yourself. And, but really like also like for me, a big change for me has been like basically like learning to love myself, like becoming, like I really love myself. And so that, I think that's kind of key for all of that stuff. But yeah, and just go slow and be honest, and just tell people, hey, I'm new and I'm scared shitless or whatever it is.
Yeah.
People will appreciate that. And if you can find a guy or a person, whatever, a couple, whoever it might be, that might be able to guide you, or like a coach, like you, because yeah, I mean, I've been watching some of your videotapes, and you talked about like going to a club, for example, and I thought you had some great pointers about like even getting in touch with the club, the people running the event, and but also just going with that attitude. Well, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to see what's, have fun and maybe meet some people, and then I'm just going to go home and go to bed or whatever, right? And but just to really not put any pressure. For me, that's a big thing. Is if I'm feeling pressured, and usually it's self, right? But self
Yeah.
pressured, but that kind of really I resist that, right? And so if you can just kind of approach it in a really relaxed, and yeah, bring if you have a friend or something, like a guy, if even if you're not a sexual with a girlfriend, go to one of these things as a couple. It's way easier, it's way less expensive than a single guy. And and then you've got, she's got you as a shield, you've got her, that kind of thing, right? I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
if you could, that would be a great way to do it, I think. Or you
Yeah.
can get, couples, I think, can also invite single. There's some clubs that just don't, a single guy, you can't come in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think what happens with serious situations like that is there's just a lot more men that are more comfortable with their sexuality or taking the steps than there are women. So then they get like overloaded with men at the clubs, and they want to try to keep an even balance, right? And then the
Yeah,
women
no,
that are there feel like it's just too much, right?
yeah,
So they have to like really screen carefully how many they want to keep numbers kind of even as much as possible,
yeah,
unless it's some kind of event where they want lots of guys and only a few women,
right,
or the
yeah,
opposite, lots of women and only a few guys. But most clubs want to try to keep an even balance. And women are still, dealing with lots of repressed sexual energy and so much fear. I mean, to allow themselves to open up, to explore these kinds of things, to go to places where there's nudity or sexuality taking place, much more
Yeah,
than men. Men tend to have, they're men are scared too. Of course, it's
men are
it's
scared.
you get
Yeah.
nervous when you want to go to these places alone, like you say, but there's still like a little bit more connection to their sexuality and their needs than women.
Oh yeah, and culturally, men are encouraged to, go out there and sow your seed, sow your wild oats. And women are taught that, that if they're in, if they have any kind of sexual urges or desires, that they're sluts, right? It's not a
Absolutely.
it's not a level playing field. But what I think is happening, especially with the younger women, is that they're a lot more. To me, they seem a lot more sort of free, I guess, in that regard. Much more sex positive, I think, and willing to express it, and I think that's great. That really,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely changing in many parts of the world where women are embracing their sexuality and being more
yeah,
open and honest about how they feel. And there's more space because there's more conversation now, right? It's much more
yeah.
open. Yeah.
Exactly. And people, and people like you, on YouTube, and yeah, like there's a lot of channels on YouTube now about sex, about having threesomes, about all kinds of stuff that you just wouldn't have ever heard about,
Heard of
even,
who'd have talked about? I mean, maybe you
no,
thought. I mean, I think the
yeah,
concept of a threesome, the thought, the fantasy has been around a long time. And
well, yeah, yeah,
still the studies show that the percentage of people that actually think about it and then actually do it is it's very small, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, that's
So
true.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, but I think, yeah. So for guys that are, trying to break into that, let's say that sphere, that world, yeah, try to go to those events, or talk to people like Lianna, get on, get on mailing lists and try to find out about it that way because there is lots of really good how to, how to go about
yeah,
and yeah, so some of the methods that might have been available, 15, 20 years ago might not be around, but there's the online stuff is it's amazing, right? And you can find some really niche um, um, you know interests, and also, yeah, and there's like FetLife, I think, is kind of like a Facebook kind of fetish website.
yeah, more kinky kind of lifestyle, kinky things. Like you say, there are niche sites now that you can go to and get more information. But it's really just taking the first step in because, like you were saying, you went to an event, they told you about some other thing going on, and then from there you learn about something else, and you just have to
Yeah,
open one door, and you will find other doors will start to open.
yeah, that's right. I mean, for me, and it's ongoing. I'm still doing. I'm still exploring. I'm still figuring out things. I'm still, wondering about, maybe I would like to try that, or this kind of thing. And so, yeah, let's say I started 15 years ago. Like that's when I really kind of like, okay, I need to get this sorted out. I need to figure this out because what I was doing wasn't working. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, and that was, and like maybe the first couple of years, even there was probably, I probably got very little action, some interaction, maybe via emails, but it was just a long, slow, continuous learning process, and also, yeah, yeah, I would follow some of those, the guru, the pickup guys, right? I would read some of their books or their, and get some thoughts that way, and but that kind of stuff, some of the techniques and that wasn't that doesn't work for me. I'm just not gonna do that, right? But but just yeah, just it's a lot of research, and then experimentation, and go to a gangbang, see what happens. Can you get a hard on? I mean, these are questions you don't know necessarily until you start doing this stuff. And if you
Yeah,
can't get a hard on, which happens sometimes, like okay, that's okay. You don't have to freak out about it. It's just like, I guess it's not happening today. Nobody else cares. They really don't. They just,
exactly,
nobody
exactly.
cares. Yeah.
Well, I'm calling all this the adult playground, because I think that's an important point that you brought up about like not being so serious. This is really, it is an adult playground, and there's a lots of things to explore, but you have to go in with like curiosity, with open mind, with like when you go to these places, or if you meet somebody, you want to be really present so you can really feel the experience and be there, like allowing it to like organically um unfold, right? So it's really like it's an adult playground. And if you start even with that, saying, hey, you know what, I think I want to go into this adult playground. Well, like I got to be curious, I got to be open, I got to be, I got to be persistent because I like to
Mhm.
play, I want to play, I'm going to playground
Yeah.
sometimes. If you think of yourself as a kid, sometimes you went to the playground, it was so much fun, you met so many kids, and sometimes you went and maybe you're the only kid there, and it's like, oh,
Right.
there's nothing
Yeah.
here, right? But it didn't stop you from going to the playground.
That's
You
right.
just
Yeah.
didn't have one great experience. So
Yeah.
just you just keep
Exactly.
going and just keep stepping in and trying different kinds of things, and I think there's just so much possibility, and there's no reason for
Yeah.
anybody to just be sitting at home and giving up, you know
Well, that's it. That's it. And yeah, I mean, I don't think you're ever, I don't think you're ever too old to do this stuff. I don't think it's ever too late. But I think, if you want to do it, get started because this is the time. I mean, seriously, this is the time, for
Hmm.
start, getting into this kind of exploration because people are interested and they want to, and so
Yeah,
you're not. It's not just about you, sort of selfishly uh, getting your own pleasure fulfilled, or you're also giving pleasure. So it's a sharing thing. It's a mutual thing, and
exactly.
yeah, and so you never know what it is that's going to be the thing that gets that person off, but you could be the one that's the perfect person to provide that.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Okay, well, Chris, I think we're gonna wrap. We've been talking for about an hour or more.
Oh, wow, excellent. Yeah,
Great. Thank you for sharing
yeah,
all
that
of
was
that. I
good.
think it's going to be super useful and helpful for other guys, to hear a lot of the things that you were talking about, a lot of the things that you've understood about yourself, and the kind of explorations that you've had, and where you're even at now, and how you're
Right.
continuing. And I think it's awesome, and really, really beneficial information for everybody. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Well, you're welcome. The other thing that guys can do that maybe they're not doing is just based, the grooming thing, right? Like trim your nails, dental hygiene, that kind of stuff, right? Just that basic stuff can really help,
Yeah, I should make a whole video about that actually.
definitely because it makes a difference, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You want to go, you're going to go in to impress, but you have to feel like $1 million yourself. Like, don't go in with your sweats and not showered or whatever. Like, go
exactly.
in like
Yeah,
you're going on a date, whether it's a date with the whole room or a date with one person. It's a date, it's an outing. Go
yeah,
full on.
yeah,
Take care of yourself.
yeah,
And like you said as well, you've done a lot of inner work, and that's something else that continually like doing the inner work to find love within, so that
yeah,
you feel more and more self-assured, self-confident, you know
exactly.
feel comfortable in spaces because you're comfortable with yourself,
Yeah, yeah. That yeah,
right?
for sure. That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, you can still do it. And I still did that stuff even when I was, like not feeling all that self-assured, and but like you can still get yourself in that room and and do it and just feel awkward and shy. Believe me, I've done that. But nobody
Yeah.
else. Yeah, and
And
you'll
look,
survive.
people love
It won't.
honesty. People love
Yeah,
honesty, you know?
they do.
you
They
you
really
you
do.
can feel it in somebody when they're like, yeah, hi, I'm doing really well, everything's really good, instead you can feel
Yeah,
it. And I have no problem if someone said, look, I'm really kind of scared, I don't know what to do. um my first time, I'm alone, oh wow, okay, so then you know where to go with this person. So
yeah,
just
yeah.
being really honest is super important. I totally agree. Like, and in any part of one's life, to be as honest as possible really really helps you move along, and
Yeah.
helps you grow much faster.
Yeah, it just makes life easier, because
Yeah,
then you're not carrying that whatever it is. You're not carrying it, right?
yeah, yeah. Not carrying your burden. And
Your burden.
okay, thanks so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining me today. And if anybody has any comments or questions or shares, just do it below. Give us a like. Thank you for coming and joining us today. And there'll be many more conversations and many more videos. So we'll see you then. Much love
awesome.
making.
Much.
Bye.
I love that. That's awesome. I've been watching your